Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, chaps. Welcome to the Green Arrow Podcast and Fantasy Football Hub, our 150th episode, no less. And it's Wildcard Fever, with both Rich and I active going into Game Week 10. My name is Fergie. Adam, welcome back. What colour was your arrow in Game Week 9?
Green again, up to 1.7 million. Sounds quite depressing saying that, and no wild card in hand. I think I played my wild card at the right time. I just think there were a couple of 2 or 3 marginal picks that I didn't get right. But yeah, so I got 84. I got my returnees were Burn, Son, Bowen, Maddison, Salah, and then the 2 City strikers. So yeah, it was okay, but I've seen some monster scores this week. So yeah, I think I've still not quite got going this season. So yeah, need to get that sorted.
This is where we start. Yeah, Christian in the chat, Christian Lundstrom scored 103. There were quite a few kind of in the late 80s, 90s and 100s. Yeah, awesome week. Rich, your dead end team going into Game Week 9. Great to have you back. How are you? What colour was your arrow in Game Week 9?
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I managed a green, which I was actually reasonably pleased with, considering I didn't own Salah, didn't own Trippier, and didn't own Watkins. So if you don't have those 3 in your team from last week, you know, you've got to be happy with a 600k green, right? I mean, I've got to look back on that and say that was all right. I mean, pretty much every one of my attackers, apart from Rashford, returned. My 1 week punt was Anthony Gordon, who now seems to be very popular on a lot of wild cards. Played really well last night in the Champions League. So yeah, that came off. He could have had an absolute haul. He was a crossbar away from a brace. So that would have had probably worth another 8 points on top of what he got. So really pleased with Gordon and that pick. And the Spurs boys came in with a shed load of points on Monday night to round the week off nicely. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with it. And you know, Fergie, looking at these ranks, you know, you've either got to be in the top 2 million or you're nowhere.
That's about right. We've been taking a lot of stick this season in the chat about our ranks, but the season starts here, guys. The season starts here. What was you said earlier, Rich? Top 1 million in 3 weeks, and then we go from there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a good week. 85 points. Trippier, Maddison, Mbomo 14-pointer, incredibly welcome. Bruno 7, Son 14, Rashford, like what the have you ever seen such a confidence player in your life? As in the swings you can get depending on how he's feeling. It is unbelievable. Yeah, and I didn't watch the match midweek, but apparently he wasn't much cop midweek either, so he is swiftly departed my team. Couldn't even get anything against Sheffield United, but 85 points, just thanks, Rich, just outside the top 2 million by a point or two, but incredibly excited for the wild card. It's going to be really good fun. I think this is the first time in a few years actually on Wildcard where really enjoyed the challenge of picking a team, because there are so many combinations of players we can have, so many amazing options. I think I mentioned this last. I think the pricing is really good this year, and obviously we've had a few gifts, haven't we, with people like maybe Gordon, Palmer, Simicast as well. So yeah, can't wait to get into the Wildcard.
I can't wait to see your team as well without Haaland, who I remember you committing and swearing an oath to last week that you'd go without him.
I remember.
Looking forward to that. I think we've got it on video and records. So yeah,
we will see.
Can't wait to see that.
I've done some analysis on Haaland versus non-Haaland. I will share the results a bit later.
Firstly, sense the backtrack already.
Firstly, let's say hello to everyone in the chat. Di Thomas, FPL Jelly says the big one today. So many options. There absolutely are. Vuck, Immortal Technique, FPL Scoped says here for a rich rant on how Botman still hasn't gone down in price.
Yes, I saw that. Honestly, I've been tweeting about that. I said it's the year 2073 and Botman is still 4.7 million, and he still hasn't dropped in another 3 days, and he's 99.7 again tonight. And people are starting to think that because, so I think it was Tom from Who Got the Assist, said that because Botman was a bit of an error at the beginning of the season. He should have been 5 million, and everyone had him in their first drafts because he was 4.5. That's why they're not
just
putting him
holding him at
down, because they're
4.7.
just holding him at 4.7 because he's still underpriced. And it's like, he just will not drop in price. So if you're sitting with him on your bench, just keep him there because you're not going to lose any value.
G. Davidson, first time being able to watch live. Great to have you with us, G. Christian is in. My homie says, look forward to seeing some wildcard drafts and Fergie's punt. Hornet. It's nice to have a number of great captain options. It is really interesting one this week. SEO FPL, Jan Kalioski, We Love FPL, Referee Rick. I'm 1974. FPL Gaz is nursing a Champions League hangover. Yeah, I must say, mind, it comes to something when Newcastle are disappointed about losing the Champions League to Borussia Dortmund. That just shows how far they came in last year or two. He also says, feel like my FPL season is just one big violin moment. Christian Romeo is in, animations, and so many more. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It's wildcard time for Rich and I. So just before the Hub mini league analyzer for us, there's only 5 points in it now. So Adam's still top. He's got 536 points. Rich is second, 532. I'm just 1 point behind on 531.
Close as hell, isn't it? After 10 weeks.
For 5 points. And consider how differently we all play. That is pretty insane. You can check out your mini league, yourself, all your mini leagues. You can get awards, Gameweek awards, live rank, see captains, transfers made and everything. Go to Fantasy Football Hub /my team and go to mini leagues. Adam, you won Data FC, so you had most predicted points for Game Week 9, but there are about 10 or 11 different ones you can look at as well. Go and check it out by yourself. Fixtures. Rich, the next four, you were quoted. You quoted me. I'm going to quote you. You said you're going to attack the fixtures. We've got the first four up from Game Week 10 to 13. Where are you attacking in your wild card?
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Ranking about 2 million is obviously not where anyone really wants to be at this stage. It's not the end of the world, but need to get moving, right? So set myself a target of go from, I think it was 2.6 million last week. Try and get in the top million by Game Week 12, end of Game Week 12. So the next international break, it's still quite an ask, another million places in 3 weeks, but with a wild card in hand and the fixtures obviously in our favour, I think it's doable. So that's the target. See how we do, with the next 3 game weeks. So there'll be a pretty heavy emphasis in my wildcard picks on the next 3 or 4 game weeks. So looking at the fixture ticker which just come up, you can see here Brighton top the ticker in the next 4 weeks with a fantastic run. Fulham, Everton, Sheffield United, and Forest.
Much better than that, doesn't it?
Closely followed by Palace, Tottenham, Burnley, Everton, Luton. I'm reading this out in case anyone's listening to the pod. And then we got Adam's team, Villa, Luton. What a fantastic fixture. Forest away, Fulham at home, Tottenham away. So 3 great fixtures, followed by a little bit of a stiffening of fixtures for Villa. And then West Ham, who we got a lot of people with West Ham in their drafts. We've got Everton at home, Brentford away, Forest at home, and Burnley away. Great run. So you see then, those 4 teams aren't exactly, Champions League winners or material. They're medium, mid-table teams topping the ticker, which really helps us with value players. It helps us with players that are more affordable, that we can reliably start in every game. So clearly having 3 or 4 players from those teams is a very wise thing to do on wildcard. Then you get the block of what I'd call the big teams. So Arsenal, over the next 4, fantastic fixture against Sheffield United. Newcastle away is a toughie, but then Burnley at home, which possibly is even better than the Sheffield United fixture, and then Brentford away. Spurs surprised me that they're 6th in the ticker over 4 weeks. I've can already disclose I've got rid of all my Spurs players, perhaps a little prematurely, but they're 6th in the ticker still, with Palace away, Chelsea at home, Wolves away, and Villa at home. Looking a little bit further forward, which Adam will do in a minute, their fixtures I think they are mixed, for the next phase of the game, and that really made it quite easy for me to drop their assets and play the fixture swing. But again, if you're holding Spurs assets, I don't think it's a problem. If you've already wild carded and you want to keep at least one midfielder, again, I don't think it's a problem. Liverpool, I would say, should be a bit higher up this chart than 7th. You know, they've got Forest at home, Luton away, Brentford at home, and then the City game. So 3 cracking fixtures in the next 3 weeks. And I'm definitely going to be targeting Liverpool. Probably will triple up. But
triple up.
Doubling.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I haven't seen many of that in on Twitter this week.
I'll kind of stop there because I think below that, over the next 4 weeks, it gets into the sort of mid-table territory. You know, teams to be avoided. You know, Chelsea right at the bottom, Brentford second from bottom, and then City 5th from bottom. So if you're thinking about getting rid of some City assets, particularly Haaland is very topical, Fergie, for going without. And Alvarez as well, very popular transfer out this week as people look to bring likes of Watkins in. So yeah, there is a big swing here away from some of the teams we've been loaded up on so far this season.
Adam, looking slightly longer term, obviously you haven't got the wild card. What's your thinking in terms of where you're targeting your transfers? Are you still looking kind of short term, or are you thinking longer term, and kind of which of the teams are you targeting the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks?
Similar to probably what wildcarders are. I think it's where the upside is. So I like Brighton. I think there's an opportunity there. I think they've got really good fixtures coming up. Villa have got, I think 4 of the next 5 are good for Villa. I think the Arsenal's fixtures are okay. I think the Newcastle one, I think if it had been the other way round, it'd be interesting to see if Newcastle was before Sheffield United, would that put people off a little bit more? I think Spurs have still got okay fixtures. So, but and then West Ham, I think, have got good fixtures as well. So transfer wise, yeah, it's a tough one. It's really tough. But the 3 teams that I think almost all my players are coming from are Villa, Brighton and Arsenal.
Okay.
And they're the 3 that I'm looking at, and potentially a Liverpool defender as well.
I would say with Spurs, I do think they're an anomaly this year. Obviously, you know, top of the league. They're going to go 5 points clear tomorrow night when they beat Palace, so they should be top for a couple of weeks yet. But I think every game apart from one, they've scored 2+ goals this season. The one was when they had a red card, Basuma, but they obviously managed to kind of win still. Just the way they're playing, I think that I'm keeping Son on my wild card, so spoiler alert there. I still think Madison is a great option, but obviously Son being up front, playing in that 9 role, the kind of goals he's scoring, I think we're seeing much more of him this year. The goals he scored against, I think it was definitely Liverpool, and I think it was the week before as well, where he burst through the middle between 2 defenders in the 6-yard box and kind of nipped in and poked the ball in. I don't think we'd have seen that off Kane. And then you see his more usual kind of goal he scores on the weekend, where he kind of drops his shoulder on the edge of the area and curls in the top corner. I think Son is just, for me, we'll touch on this next. At his price, he's just non-negotiable for me. I think he's potentially a game breaker this year, just with the new position he's playing. Adam, you've always been a massive fan of his finishing ability, and I honestly think that the tougher the fixture, almost with Son, on paper, the more he seems to perform, which is why I don't mind having Son against anyone. It's kind of personally, but other than that, yeah, you know, Brighton, West Ham, Villa, they're all on form. They're all scoring goals. As
you've mentioned, Son, I think it's probably good to start bringing in comparisons with the Arsenal midfielders.
Yeah, good shout.
Because I think on Wildcard, you know, you see on Twitter and you see on all of the social media, people are, you know, talking about players being essential and all that. I'll be honest, I don't think a single player this season. If you said to me, there's what, you know, you have to wildcard, but you can't have player X, it wouldn't be an issue, because I don't think there's any single player. I think there's so many great options, and I think, let's say that you couldn't have Haaland, you could have Trippier, Saka, Son, Watkins, etc. So there's loads, Salah, of course, and you could do that the same. You can make the same argument by missing any of those players. So I don't think any player is essential. The thing that the challenge that I've got I sort of agree with you on Son, but I also love Maddison. So Maddison has returned in every single away game this season, and I think he's known for doing quite well away from home. Can Maddison match? He doesn't need to match Son, but he does for his value. Could he? I think he possibly could. And then it's Son versus Saka's an interesting one because I believe both of you two. Well, I think you might be going both, Fergie, but I think Son v Saka. I probably won't have both in game week, whatever we're going into, game week 10. And I know Rich probably won't have both. So I'm really interested to see Son v Saka for you, Fergie. If you had to go with one on your wild card, who would you go with?
I think if we had to go with one on my wild card, I would go with. I think I'd go with Saka, but I've got a slide up now called non-negotiables, and Saka and Son for me are non-negotiable. They are. I've got
Saka didn't make the slide though.
He did make this slide because I know that you weren't going for him, Rich. But for me, if we're talking about non-negotiables on this wild card now, Saka, Son, Watkins, and Salah are 4 players that I would not be without on my wild card. What about you, Rich? Saka and Son. If you had the choice, if budget was no option, I suppose.
I think right now the 4 that I've managed to retain on wildcard are Salah, Haaland, Watkins, and Saka. So I'm going without Trippier and I'm going without Son, and that is mainly driven because I've got very poor team value, and I've just had to accept that I've got very poor team value. Me moaning and sulking about it isn't going to get me any more money. I've just got to look positively at what players are available and what sort of team I can build for the fixtures without those guys. Because really, to get to Salah, because I didn't own Salah all year, to get to Salah, Son had to be the sacrifice really, because he had enough value in him for me to bring him in. So it's obviously with regret. And I looked at teams, I looked at drafts with Trippier. I had an opportunity to buy him when he went from 6.9 to 7, and I sat up till about 1 o'clock in the morning deciding whether to get him in, and I just decided that my team just looked poor with him in it going forward. And then I looked at Newcastle's fixtures, and they haven't really got a good home fixture for about 5 weeks. And I just thought I'll go without and use the money upfield to build a strong attacking side at least, which you can do with the enablers that we've got. So I've got Watkins, Haaland, Salah, and Saka from that mix of.
If Rich, let's say you were able to raid FPL towers for another $1 million. You did a bit, rob the FPL bank, etc. Nobody found out. Would you could make that Saka to Son move? Would you do it?
Not right now, not with those fixtures. No, I would want Saka for at least for the Sheffield United and the Burnley games, and then I would work out a way of an option of getting back to Son when Tottenham's fixtures just improve slightly. I'm not worried about going, as you said at the beginning, I'm not worried about going without anybody for a few weeks. I've been without Salah for 10 weeks.
I think that's fair because there's so many options scoring at a very similar rate. I think we'll talk about them next, but all the midfielders, I've been having headaches all week about Diaby, Bowen, Mitoma, Gordon, and even Saka, Martinelli, and Ella. They're all scoring similar-ish points.
That's right.
And we just can't have everyone. It's not like they're a player.
But it's a difference. You've got about half a dozen teams that are really humming and they're really playing well and scoring 3 or 4. You don't have to keep looking to City to be the only team that thrashes somebody. The drubbing can be handed out by Villa, by Liverpool, by Arsenal. There's loads of teams, and some of these teams, Brighton as well. You add that to the mix. They've got the fixtures and the form.
Just going to say, you add the fixtures and the form
and the player prices, to do it. So it now just feels like a really good time to wildcard for that set of fixtures. And you are. You've got to let a bit of FOMO go. You can't just cling on to player just because he's done well so far. You can have a bit of a free swing at this, and hopefully it'll do better than the whatever it was, the 6 Man United and Chelsea players that we all had a few weeks back. That was a disaster, wasn't it? And that was all fixture based planning. It didn't go well. But we've got 9 weeks worth of data now, and we've watched a lot of football, and I think we can be more confident in the sides we're investing in.
I know you said, Adam, that obviously no one is essential, but in terms of the 4 players being on wildcard or not being on wildcard now, if there were maybe 4 players who would be the first 4 on your team sheet without any shadow of a doubt, who would they be?
Okay, if I was, I think because the challenge with this is it comes around combination. So I would say my non-negotiables, I would have Haaland and I would have Salah. So they would be the first 2 without question. I think I'd have to have Watkins. He's just he's looking great.
On fire, isn't he? What player?
Yeah, he's watching him live. I'd changed my seat the weekend from my season ticket, so I was sat really close to the pitch, and I was on the side where he scored, and like a couple of rows from the front, and he's electric. Yeah. He's so quick, and I actually thought he'd missed the one when he put it in the roof of that. I thought
he was at the side net.
Yeah, because of the angle that I was at, but he looks great. So I'd go Watkins. Now the 4th is hard because, and this is where I'm struggling a little bit. I think Martinelli could be a really, really good option. And possibly, but it depends obviously on Gabriel Jesus as well. Gabriel Jesus could be a good option. So I don't know if I rate Saka as highly as some people are rating him. The one I'm struggling, I really like Maddison at the moment. Really, really like him, and but I like Son as well. But I only want 1 Spurs, and this is the thing that's frustrating me at the moment because I don't know. Because I think I've looked at it. I could either have this is where combinations come in. I could either have Matoma and Son, or Saka and Maddison. Yeah, exactly.
It's so tight. This is the problem. Like, well,
it is.
We'll look later on predicted
they're
points.
They're both really great combinations, aren't they? I mean, neither of them sounds like bad. They both sound absolutely dreamy.
Yeah, and I think the Son and Matoma wouldn't need a hit. The Maddison and Saka would, but it's on paper.
You've got Son at the moment.
Yeah, I've got Son. I've got Son and Maddison at the moment. So I need to lose 1 to get Watkins in. It's tough. We say it's tough, but on the flip side to that, there are options, and I think that's the good thing. Every single week, there's becoming more and more players available, particularly in the cheaper midfielder categories, the cheaper defender categories. So, I would have. You say the negotiables. I did put a wildcard team together. I would have Saka, Son, Watkins, Haaland, and Salah. So I'd have all 5. And I think my
you wouldn't have much cash left or anything else if you did that. I think.
Well, you say that. I did it. I was surprised. So I could have a midfield. The other 2 midfielders would be Matoma and Gordon, and I've been really happy with that as a 5. I can get there for a -8 if I want to, but it means taking out Diaby and Bowen, who've both got great fixtures this week. So I don't think I'll do that. I don't think that's maybe a step too far.
Speaking of Bowen and Diaby now, midfielders, it's just a minefield in terms of some incredible options. And every time I change my team around, I think, oh, I really like that. I think, oh no, I've taken Matoma out, and then I think, right, I really like that. Oh no, I haven't got Gordon, and it's just everywhere I look, they're just incredible options. Rich, you've touched on this. Obviously, we were a bit of a chat on WhatsApp earlier, and you said around, you know, that Gordon, especially, he's 5.6 million. He's probably playing more like a 7.5, 8 million player. And Palmer now looks to be a bit of a gift. I know he went up last night from 4.9 to 5, but you said that because those 2 options are very good valid options in their own right, it'd be foolish to maybe ignore them, especially if you've got a low transfer value. So what's your thought on midfield?
Yeah, I mean, I think think those enablers. I think you maybe got them on a later slide than the midfield dynamo one you got on the screen. But the enablers, really, I think you've got to, if you're like me and you've got a team value just over 100 million, you've got to take the enablers in the positions that they're in, and they're because you've got Palmer, who's on pens. Yes, Chelsea have got a few tough fixtures ahead, but he's the ideal sort of eighth man, the ideal first bencher, fifth midfielder, and Anthony Gordon is arguably Newcastle's best player at the moment. He's all over the place, tigerishly running around. He was brilliant in the Champions League last night. Played really well, and I'm really glad I've got him. I just brought him in for a 1 week punt, but to be honest, I'm going to keep him. I mean, I just want to keep him in the team, given the position he's playing, and given the fact that Newcastle, some of their other options for him, even for substitutions, they've all got injured. So he's going to start every game for the foreseeable. So love Gordon, love Palmer. And when you have those two in, I mean, for me, I've got them alongside Bowen, Saka and Salah. That gives me money for a third forward. So, we'll get onto that later. But yeah, it's exactly what it's for, though. It's enabling. I've mucked about with drafts with Martinelli, loading up on the double Arsenal attack, which is attractive. But if Jesus he helps Martinelli's performances. And if he's injured, it's just slightly less attractive to me, and I like Bitoma, I like him as well, but, you can't have everyone. So, I think for me, Bowen has to be in, given West Ham's fixture.
The one thing to say, there aren't many teams that have got good fixtures in the next 2 game weeks, because like next week you've got Newcastle play Arsenal, Spurs play Chelsea. It's fair, there's some tough fixtures, but there's 2 or 3 teams that do. West Ham have got Everton and Brentford. Villa have got Luton and Forest, and Brighton have got Fulham and Everton. So that makes me like, and I don't think Brighton have got League Cup football next week, so that makes me like the Matoma punt a little bit more. Yeah, it's tough. It really is on who to go for.
Where would you rank? So let's exclude Salah and Son and Saka. Let's just say, in terms of the rest of them, what would be your top 3 then in terms of preference?
Midfielders.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh right. Okay. Well, when I just put a wildcard team together, and I had Gordon and Mitoma. So I think that gives it quite a nice balance. I like Bowen. I like Maddison. I still think Diaby will come good, and I'm glad I've got him. But I would say Gordon and Mitoma would be the other 2 that I would put in. Is that
on merit, as in like Gordon over Bowen on merit, or just
the way he's playing it? I mean, if I had a limited budget, I probably would go Bowen, but I don't. I think the way Gordon's playing at the moment, he just looks electric. He does. And Newcastle are electric, and yes, they've got tough fixtures, but the 2 tough fixtures they've got are at home. And you saw what they did to PSG, didn't you? So, and last night against quality opposite, they're great at home. They are really, really good at home. So, yeah, it's a tough one. I definitely like Anthony Gordon. And I think Matoma's a fun one just because their fixtures are so good, and
he's definitely on my shortlist. He's not in my draft, but I can't stop thinking Matoma's got to be a sound pick for 6.5.
He's an incredible pick, isn't he? But
he's only played. Also, people are worried about his minutes. He started 9 out of 10 games, or 8 out of 9 games in the Premier League.
And they've got injuries and solid marches.
Yeah, exactly.
The one that it's really annoying, because I think when I've wildcarded, I've probably impacted myself here, and I've got to stick with them. But I think Bowen, I think he's okay, but West Ham they don't look great going forwards, and I think I'd prefer to go for Gordon or a Mitoma in those positions. If I'm just thinking of it, I think I prefer that. And Diaby's frustrating because as well, he played 75 minutes the weekend. I knew you could see he was going to come off. I think he looked quite tired, but it's just there's been a lot of near misses. Like he should have easily have had an assist, at least one assist the weekend. And it feels that maybe Watkins has, the assists have come to Watkins, whereas Diaby's missed out. But he is really playing as a support striker. Everything is going through Watkins. Watkins is so central.
Yeah. This is a hard question for you as a Villa fan, but
yeah,
do you possibly think that a Villa triple up just feels like a little bit too much on a wild card? Or do you think it's almost like would you still triple up if you're wild carding today?
No. If I was wild carding today, I would go for Matoma over Diaby and Gordon over Bowen.
And what about, we haven't mentioned, he's maybe on the next slide, but we haven't mentioned your mate Dougie. So
he's an incredible player, Villa's best player without question. And Emery made a point about him getting at the edge of the box in positions to shoot. Technically, he's incredible. He did just before the one that he scored, which to be fair, could Areola have done better, but the one just before he scored, he bent one in the top corner, which Areola made a great save. The thing with Douglas Luiz, he's on 4 yellow cards, so I should mention that firstly. But the thing with Douglas Luiz is he's got so many avenues to points. So he's on direct free kicks. He's one of the few players in Premier League history to have scored a penalty, a corner, and a direct free kick. So a bit of random trivia for you. So even corners, he hit what a corner a weekend, and it was on target. It was pretty much a shot. He's ridiculous. So I think he's a sort of player that when he scores, he'll get bonus, and he will pick up assists as well. So he's more attacking than his position suggests, because he sort of loiters on the edge of the box. And there were a few goals last season. He scored 6 in a row at Villa Park, so 7 goals in 6 games. And he sort of loiters on the edge of the box, and sometimes that'll be a pullback for a shot. But he's also got a couple of goals where, because Emery's team love a cutback, and he scored a couple of tap-ins from cutbacks. I think he got one at Brentford last year. We got one. It might have been against Brighton, actually. His goal was so. He's great. He's absolutely great, and I think he's one you just have to be patient with, because it's hard to predict when his points would come. That's what I would say. But absolute great player, and I think under Emery as well. So it's quite interesting. So Emery's been in a year now. I'm not sure what Dougie had prior to Emery coming in, but I think he only had like an assist last season. So last season he got 6 goals, 7 assists, I think, off the top of my head.
Not bad.
And he's got 5 goals and on pens this season. So I think he got 12 of those attacking returns. He's got 17 attacking returns under Emery, which in a year, so maybe one every 2 games, I would say. And the penalty thing, we're not going to get penalties every week, of course we're not. But Villa Park is becoming a fortress, and all of the penalties we've had this season have come at Villa Park. I think they've all come in front of the whole end as well. It's no surprise, because it's a bit like, United, Liverpool attack. It's a great atmosphere. Villa are having a lot of the ball, and it's attack after attack after attack. And we've got quick players running. So I could see, it's possible we have a season where we get 7 or 8 pens, and he's a very, very good. It's nice to have a good penalty taker, best one we've had since El Ghazi. So
no chance of Ollie getting them back then.
Zero. I think even if Douglas misses one, he'll continue to take them, because he's so. It was said that they gave him penalties because of his coolness under pressure, and you just look at him. I fancy him to score pretty much every time. He's so relaxed, and since he's gone on to set pieces, so it was he'd always sort of sporadically took little bits, but with Austin McPhee coming in a couple of seasons ago, he's got more and more involved in corners. He's scored like direct free kicks. So yeah, he is an option. I'm just nervous of the 4 yellow cards, and the other thing as well is that there are just so many options playing further forward, like your Netos, like your Anthony Gordons, Cole Palmers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would say to go over there, but he's
Not
one
a
of
bad
those.
punt, is it? No.
No, exactly. He's someone a bit different.
And just to finish off, looking at the forwards and mids, I think for me, looking at the fixtures more specifically, rather than just looking at a good run of fixtures, I think Brighton, looking at the kind of teams like the Target, the teams who concede lots of chances, lots of goals. Fulham were all over the shop, wasn't they, against Spurs? They've got that Bassey at the moment, who'll be playing against Matoma this week, and then Brighton also play Sheffield United 2 weeks later, who as we know are not the best either. With Everton in between, Everton is decent, but I think specifically Fulham and Sheffield United are good, which is why I quite like Matoma over the others. With Villa as well, I think Luton and Fulham are kind of similar in terms of the quality. In terms of, I think Villa will score lots of goals against those two, and Forest in between, which is decent. I think looking at West Ham's one, this is why I'm maybe potentially erring a little bit away from Bowen, and it's only because of the vast amount of options. But I do think Everton at home, Everton have improved. Brentford away is going to be, kind of reasonably difficult, and then Forest at home. And while it's a good fixture, I just don't think it's as good as Fulham at home or Sheffield United at home, which is why I'm probably erring a little bit away from Bowen. And then Arsenal, Sheffield United at home, and Burnley at home, as we know, they're probably as good as they get. So I think that's the only thing maybe which is making me think to go off Bowen a tiny bit. It's just the pure quality of the defences they're playing against, even though Everton and Forest are, not great defences. They're not as bad as, Fulham, Sheffield United and Luton. So just a quick look at predicted points before we move on for the next 4 game weeks. Haaland top 32, Salah 26, Son 25, Saka 22. Bruno is still up there. Obviously after this week they've got some nice fixtures again. Maddison, Watkins, Mitoma, Martinelli, Wilson, Diaby, Gordon, Odegaard, Bowen. Now, all these players are within like 1 point of each other over 4 weeks. So even though that's a list of players, like linear list going down, all these players are within like a point of each other. So yeah, it's very interesting, and it's no surprise really why we're kind of struggling a bit to decide who to go with. Let's have a touch on enablers before we move on. We've talked about these a little bit. We've touched on Gordon. We've touched on Louise. There's a few others on here, Rich. You just want to quickly introduce a few of the other enablers before we start looking at drafts?
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, the slide's just coming up in a few seconds, but I'm sure Cole Palmer will be on it. He's gone up in price this week already, so if you've nabbed him from 4.9 to 5, well done. But yeah, at 5 million, 4.9 million. Chelsea's fixtures aren't the best, but he's got a game this weekend against Brentford at home. If he stays in my wild card, I'll start him in that game. I don't know who I'd bench, to be honest, because I'm thinking about having a front 8. So I do think Chelsea have turned the corner a bit. A bit unlucky not to beat Arsenal last week. Threw it away a bit at the end, and like Palmer, great enabler. I think given low team value, he's an excellent pick. And I think someone else put it out in the community that if you pair him up with, say, Mark Guehi at Crystal Palace in the back line at a 4.5 defender, say your 4th defender, then you've got great cover. And if you look at the fixture splits, playing one of those 2 each week up until game week 20, they dovetail beautifully with the fixture list. So you can pair him. And I know some people say, oh, don't rotate a midfielder and a defender and mess about with that, but it is viable if you are low on team value to pair him up with a Crystal Palace player. So I like him. Gordon, we've talked about. If you don't fancy Gordon, then the other guys on this slide, we talked about Dougie at the back, and then we've got Thomas Souček, who's similar price, I think 4.95 million for West Ham. Souček, I remember from a couple of seasons back, was like my 12th man. He scored 10 goals in the 2 seasons ago. I think I only got 2 of them.
He was always on the bench, wasn't he?
From
first
playing,
bench.
He was always first bench, and whenever he scored, he was benched, and whenever I played him, he didn't score. But he's definitely got a goal in him. He's definitely got half a dozen goals in him, and with West Ham's fixtures, he's another great enabler that will come in, and that now you're seeing a lot of wild cards with that that fifth midfielder spot around that price point, around the 5 million mark. And right in the front here was my my saviour from last season, who helped me get my top 10k right at the end of the season, which was Evan Ferguson. Remember, you guys were laughing at me when I bought him as the third Brighton asset, and he came in with that brace when I almost owned him on my own, it felt, and he's now, with Danny Welbeck out, he's got a chance of a run in the team, for the first time in age. That doesn't mean Brighton don't have other options. They can play João Pedro in the 9, or they can, I don't know who else they'll put through the middle, but the two main striker options, Welbeck and Ferguson, he's got no competition there initially, so he could see a highly increased minutes. So if you fancy a punt and it's affordable for that third striker spot, 6.0 is he? I think 6.0.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and I say you don't go Mitoma because you prefer someone else in that crowded midfield, then your way into the Brighton attack is possibly Evan Ferguson. So I think that's everyone on the slide, because Adam's talked about that. Is Douglas Luiz in the background, isn't it? I think
it is. Yeah, so,
it's
very rare we have such powerful enablers that have really only come to the fore in the last kind of the 2 or 3 weeks. Is right. If you're wildcarding in game week, in game week 8, probably Palmer wasn't really on the watch list then, was he? Obviously Gordon may have been, but it's only been the last few weeks where he's really stepped up. Barnes injured, and Isak injured, and Murphy's injured now as well. So I think we've been quite fortunate in having these options available to us, and
And one point on that, what I was really amazed to see, and I didn't quite bring it out, was when Adam was talking about, when you could just bring up the 10-week or the 10-week fixture view slide again, Fergie.
Yeah, I can.
Look where Newcastle sit on the ticker if you take a longer term view,
second
like a
overall.
10-week view, second overall.
Yeah.
So although people are maybe selling out of Newcastle or not investing in their players, like overall in the long run, they've still got great fixtures.
They have. It starts getting really good around game week 17 onwards. Fulham, Luton, Forest, but even until that time. And like I say, I think Newcastle. Didn't we see stats this week that they're top for every attacking metric in the Premier League this season?
Yeah, match of the day,
goals and XG and everything you want to be. So again, when you've got a team performing like that, I don't think it really matters around the fixtures. Whoever he's playing, look at him against Dortmund last night. I mean, that would have been red on the FDR, right? But he was fantastic. How he was so incredibly unlucky not to score. So I don't really think it matters with him. So I think he's looking good. Adam, thoughts? Any kind of more enablers, or would you be going with kind of Palmer and Gordon or someone like that, or would you still prefer a stronger fourth mid if you had the option?
I think I'd go Mitoma and Gordon would be the two that I'd pick.
Mitoma and Gordon.
Yeah.
Mitoma apparently looks like he might be benched this evening, which is obviously great for the weekend. And as you say, with no midweek match next week, then
that's
he should be safe.
Actually, if he doesn't get flogged this evening, I think that, given it's such fine lines for choosing,
exactly, you've got to go down
on your wild card. Is one of your players, one of your 11, not to start, right? Because you instantly think, oh God, the risk is immediately coming. Yeah. If you get a full game out of him against Fulham, I think I love these pods because they do help crystallise my decisions. They really do.
You've got to go down kind of layers, haven't you? And it's really, like layers of decision making when it comes to it. And like I say, my kind of layer I've got to with Bowen is that even though the fixtures are brilliant, and they are brilliant, I think there's other teams with even more brilliant fixtures, if that makes sense. But you've got to go down all these kind of layers. It's really interesting. Let's start having a look then about the shape of a wildcard team, and we've got the HERAI latest one on screen now, which we'll just look at. It does have Johnston and Areola as the keepers. I think Turner will probably be quite popular. So a lot of people bought him for 4 million, so only 4.1 now. At the back, it's gone very light. I think it's probably fair to say that Tsimikas is an absolute gift. He was 4.4 million. He's 4.5 now. Gabriel is very popular as well at 4.7 million. Obviously he was 5 and he dropped all the way down, but looks like he's nailed now. As we saw, Arsenal's fixtures are fantastic, and they're top of the ticker for the next 10 game weeks as well. So he's looking really, really good. In terms of what the HERAI has picked, then it's gone for Burn. So as you said, Rich, over the 10 game weeks, Newcastle is still very high on the ticker, so it still fancies a Newcastle defender for 4.7, and then it's got incredibly cheap on the bench, so it's gone for Branthwaite and Taylor. So it's really looking at pushing all the money into midfield and up front.
What team value does that have? Because it looks, looking at that midfield,
it's quite high. I think it's about 100. I want to say 102.5 or 102.
Yeah, so it's possible that a lot of people, or some people, won't be able to afford that. But it's I think that I like that team. It makes sense.
Well, it's got a lot of the players have been, to be honest, have probably been held for quite a while by a lot of players. People like Maddison, Saka, Salah, Haaland, Watkins for a while. But yeah, interesting comment on this, and we haven't really touched on it because we don't normally talk about keepers. But virtually every draft and every wildcard from Game Week 8 has got Areola, Turner as the keepers. But I've been looking at keepers, and Areola, yes, but if you pair him with Johnston or Flecken, that's worth looking at. And I'm glad the AI has put Johnston in there, because they are the 2 4.5 choices that will just give you that little bit of less dependency on Areola. I mean, I don't think people are starting to think, it's been saying for weeks Turner's going to lose his place. Forrest, as you said to me, Adam, like, only gained me 2 points, but you said last week, you'd go Onana over Turner, and I did. He got 3 points. Turner got 1.
There you go.
There we are.
You owe me a point.
Better off. Yeah, thanks very much, mate. But yeah, I mean, just that 10-week dependency on Areola just feels a bit much. If you get the Brentford keeper in, he has got some nice fixtures from a
double game week as well.
And you've got that on your bench for the double game week if it goes into game week 20. So if you've got it's a $500,000 spare is a lot at the moment. But if you're picking some of these more budget picks, you could find you've got the ability to go from Turner to one of these two of Johnston and Flecken, and it's worth having a look at the improved fixtures you get out of that keeper rotation.
A really good shout. It's something I've not really thought about. And depending which combination I go with, I could have a bit of spare change. So that is definitely worth considering, Rich. Yeah, Salah, Saka, and Son, obviously, and it's got Maddison going. So, like I say, this team is probably got a bit more value than kind of lots of our teams. But obviously, you can go from Maddison to Bowen or Diaby, or kind of anyone there. And then Gordon at fancies, and then Haaland and Watkins and Archer on the bench. So it's going for a very, very strict 3-5-2 in terms of putting all the money on the pitch. But like looking at the way that the season has gone thus far, it looks to be sensible. So yeah, I think it looks a decent team. Like I say, obviously, if it was $1 million short of that, I think some in the chat just said
it's a very decent 11.
It is, and it's interesting. So I was having a chat this morning with Will and a few guys from the hub, actually, kind of around the AI and around the predictions and things. And it's interesting because the whole point of AI is that eventually it will be superior to humans in terms of the way that
it's Terminator
that it picks. Well, it will. This is the whole point of AI, is it looks at things incredibly objectively, and it kind of trains itself. So, and we were when we were kind of discussing whether it's good to have a stronger bench, stronger first bench, and who's to say which is right? Archer's playing like. If you look at that, Archer and Branthwaite play, every week, because I was fixated on having Udogie as my kind of first bench player. But when I looked at this, and this is what I love about the AI, it's not, you can specifically look at it and think, yeah, that's good, but you can also think, well, it just makes you think of it differently. So off the back of this, I've taken Udogie out of my team now, released like 0.5 million, which enabled me a different combination of player. And this is what I like about looking at the AI. It just helps you think a bit differently sometimes. So, but yeah, that's the That's the AI team. We will look at Rich's and I wildcards drafts in a second. Just for housekeeping, well, I say housekeeping, best captain this week. Wide open, absolutely wide open. Predicted points, Haaland top 7.5 away to Man United, Salah 7.1 home to Forest, Saka 6.4 home to Sheffield United, Watkins 5.8 at home to Luton, and then Martinelli, Son, Tsimikas, Mitoma, Diab, all these players we're talking about are all up. They're all within kind of 0 point something points of each other. But looking at the poll on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, 48% of the vote. Adam, do you want to have a guess who's top?
Salah.
Salah is top, 48% of the vote. Watkins is second with 30% of the vote. Saka is third, 10%. Haaland only fourth, 8%.
That's got to be the first poll where Haaland is in fourth place.
Absolutely. So, Adam, can I come to you first on your thoughts on captaincy this week?
Yeah, tough one, I think. I've got the armband on Salah because I don't own Watkins at the moment. And I think, at the moment, I'm thinking Salah, but because I have a slight bias towards captain midfielders. That's it. Yeah. So I think I'm on Salah, but I think it's a really, really close one. The thing that I would say, it'd be interesting to see how Forest set up, because they conceded a lot of chances to. It seemed like Luton. It was quite easy for them to get back in the game. So, on the flip side, Luton conceded a lot of chances to Chris Wood, and you can just imagine Ollie Watkins in that position.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the commentary on Match Today. It did my head in. They kept calling him Chris Woods every.
Woods, yeah, like Tiger Woods.
Really?
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it's doing my head in. Like it's just like, but you think after one, he'd correct himself.
Was Chris Woods?
Chris Woods.
He was a Sheffield Wednesday keeper, wasn't he?
That's it. Yeah, he's a former England keeper. You're absolutely
Chris
spot
Woods,
on. But he just kept calling him Chris Woods, and it's annoying me. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think I'll be on Salah.
Rich.
I think it'll be on Salah. I haven't owned him all season. I have to say that I was on my own last Saturday watching the Everton game, the first game, and it's a bit of my violin moment, really. I basically, not owning Salah in a game like that is an absolute nightmare. The commentator, what seems like every 25 seconds, is just losing it and going, it's literally every 25 seconds the ball comes to him in a
good position,
chance position, and it's like, it is horrendous. Just get him in your team if you haven't got him already, and captain him sometimes over Haaland, because it's just worth it. It's just worth it. He is the best fantasy asset we have had in the last 5 years and continues to be so. He's unbelievable.
Didn't Forest do him home and away last year? Not that should massively affect this, but
no, they did them at home, but I think Liverpool won 3-2 at Anfield. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Salah scored at least one.
Yeah, I think it'll be on Salah. I think I'd prefer. Well, I definitely prefer Watkins and Saka to Haaland this week, even though
I agree. Yeah,
even though Haaland, I think will probably score. I think this haul material this week, massive haul, like 2 goals and an assist sort of material for Saka, Watkins, and Salah, Watkins, and Saka. I think all 3 of them have got incredible fixtures.
The only thing is if they're probably Saka, Watkins, and Salah will all get good points, but it's just they're also, all those teams are likely to get a penalty as well, and it's like Ollie's not on penalties, and that's the only thing, even for a vice captaincy, that just makes me think I'll put it on the penalty taker. But then Saka will probably just give it to one of his mates anyway if he gets my money. So, so yeah, I'll probably vice it on Watkins.
Fergie is a punt. Game week 10 to 13. So last week I went for Tsimikas, got the clean sheet. Hooked on 62 minutes, I would add, so quite fortunate there. But that was decent. This week we've touched on him already. I think with the injuries that this team have got, allied with the fixtures the team have got, I mentioned them earlier. The fixtures are just as good as they get. He should play two of the next three, I think, really, really good players all around him. Wonderboy, Starlet, the next big thing a few weeks ago when he scored the hat-trick. But I've got to bang in Evan Ferguson as my punt for the next 3 or 4 weeks. 4 magnificent fixtures, 2 incredible ones at home. And if Brighton can show some of the early season attacking form, and he does start, even if he gets like 70 minutes, which is the only reason I'm not bringing him into my team, I think, because he is like a 65, 70-minute sort of player. But he could do some serious damage. So Evan Ferguson, 6 million. If you are looking at a third striker, or you're looking for a differential, or home to Fulham, away to Everton, home to Sheffield United, away to Forest, they are banging fixtures for Ferguson. So if you're not going for Matoma, for example, but you really want a piece of that attack, I think Ferguson could be an absolutely great shout there. Let's have a look at our teams then. Firstly, Adam, we're winding up slowly, Rich, to our drafts, winding everyone up ever so slowly. We're nearly there. But Adam, firstly, do you want to talk us through you've got a fantastic team. You've got a great team, but do you want to talk us through your plans for this week?
Yeah, so it's a tough one. So a few issues. Udogi's apparently got a slight knock, so might have to address that, which is fine. Happy. I'd look at Gabriel or Tsimikas. I've got a few options, and I'm struggling what to do. It's whether because whatever option I go for, I'm gonna be missing either Son or Saka. It's tough.
And you're taking someone out probably who's got a really good home fixture, I'm guessing as well.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So I'd looked at. So at the moment, I'm looking at Alvarez and Maddison to Matoma and Watkins. That's what I'm thinking is my favourite pick.
Okay.
I could keep Maddison, and I could do Son, Alvarez, and then I think I've got just enough money to maybe do Anderson as well, and to go to Tsimikas, Saka, and Watkins. So it's again, what combination's better, Saka and Maddison or Son and Matoma? I actually put a poll on Twitter. I haven't checked it yet, so I'll tell you what. It'd be interesting to see what it's come back with, because I can't split it at the moment. So let's have a look what it's saying. What do you reckon out of those two options?
Are you doing? So you got 2 frees or 1?
Two frees.
Right.
If I go Saka and Maddison, it'll involve a hit.
Mm-hmm.
But I could do. But I'll probably take a hit anyway to sort of Doge or sort of defender out. So I think I'll take a hit anyway. Or the other one is Son and Matoma. Let's have a look what. Okay, it's close.
Tough one there. Do you think, Adam, that you wish you'd held out on Wildcard, or are you glad you went?
No, I don't wish I held out. I think I definitely wildcarded at the right time for my team. I just wish I'd have made 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I think decisions within my wildcard. There were a couple of 50-50. Julian Alvarez was the big one, because I just couldn't let go of him, and I felt
he's continued to do well, hasn't he?
Yeah, I know, but it's. I wish I'd have gone Watkins. That was the big one, and I think I would have been Watkins and Neto over Diaby and Alvarez, and it would have made a decent difference to my score, and probably how I'd probably set me up slightly better going forwards. So I definitely don't regret wildcarding, but I do regret a couple of the picks.
Just before you give the result of your poll, James Hard in the chat says Adam not having Ollie Watkins is like Winnie the Pooh not having honey, Paddington not having marmalade, or Banana Man not having bananas. So
I can't argue with that. I think the big problem is I think with any Villa player, when you're at Villa Park watching them, you want them to do well. And I was still pleased when Watkins scored the weekend, but it's gonna, he definitely needs to be in my team.
So what are the results of the poll?
Okay, Saka and Maddison 47.5%, Son and Matoma 52.5%. So there does seem to be a real big push on Son. So yeah, What would you guys say? Would you go with the poll?
I would personally.
What
Son
about you,
of,
Rich?
Son of
I
Matoma
think
for
you've
me.
got to have Saka for the next few. Got to have Saka back. He scores every week as well. You know.
So you're saying Saka? So you're saying Saka and Maddison?
Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it?
It is tough.
Yeah.
They're both good.
Are you able to get a -4 to get in Saka as well, Adam, or not? Or is that not viable?
Nah, I can do. I mean, I think. Is there any way of doing it? Let's have a look. I don't think there is a. No, because so if I lose,
you've got the more expensive fifth mid, haven't you? So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I can. I mean, I can get a -8 and have both of them, but then I haven't sorted out my defence, and I don't think like. I mean, then I'd lose Diaby and Bowen.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think
they're all so close in points that it's just not worth it, is it?
Yeah. Well, also,
exactly.
Remember Bowen had 2 middling fixtures, one of which they got thrashed in 4-1 by your lot, and now you've brought Bowen in for the fixtures that start now, don't?
Yeah, and I think exactly so, and it's feasible. Bowen could match Saka. He's very talismanic for West Ham. So yeah, it's a tough one. I think at the moment I'm leaning towards bringing Matoma and Watkins in. Because I think Matoma's quite an exciting one that I know he's quite highly owned, but I don't know if he'll be in many. I don't know how many wild cards he'll be in. I think people might leave him out, so I think it could be a good way to go. So that's probably the way I'm going to go at the moment.
Your recommended transfer on the AI is Udogie to Simicast. Simicast is quite high up in all the models for predicted points for the next few weeks. Obviously, he has to make it over 60, which he should. But yeah. Okay, Rich, your wildcard draft is up on screen, proudly up on screen, and there's someone in there we haven't even mentioned, we haven't even talked about at all.
I know.
Do you want to talk us through it?
Some oohs and ahs in the chats, probably. Okay. Probably about the 50th draft I've come up with this week. Ended up selling all my Spurs players probably a bit prematurely. I sold them before Monday's game. Actually, the reason I did it is I wanted Ollie Watkins so badly and he was rising that I thought I would get that sorted on Sunday evening. And so I dumped my Spurs players. So I can't really, something I could go back to them. I don't want to pay more for them. So they're gone. Fairly template at the back. The back almost picks itself on a wild card with Gabriel, Simicast, Cash, and as your 3. And then the other 2 positions, really, it's probably wise to have a 4.5-ish defender in there. At the moment, I've gone for Guehi because he dovetails with Palmer so well. And I picked up Lascelles last night for 3.9 before he went up. I'm not sure I'll stick with that. But with Botman, who I was laughing about earlier, being out probably until at least the international break, Lascelles is a good, he's going to get the next 3 games for Newcastle, which is really arguably one of the best defences in the league. So he's there as my sort of 5th defender. In the mids, compromised a little bit on the midfield with Salah, Saka, Bowen, and then the 2 enablers at the moment in there, Palmer and Gordon. Gordon I already bought in last week, and I think I'm going to keep him because I like him so much. I think this conversation that we've had this evening is really making me think about Matoma. So it's for me that it will be coming off the 3rd forward and having Matoma in there over perhaps Palmer. So that would be a midfield of Bowen, Salah, Saka, Matoma, Gordon, and that's nicely balanced down through the price points as well. So I like that because you can go anywhere.
Could you get, instead of Bowen, could you get Martinelli?
Yes, and originally my first draft was going to be first draft was going to be Salah, Saka, Martinelli, Bowen, Gordon, so I could have all of those. So I still had Bowen in there, but he was my 4th mid rather than my 3rd mid. So Martinelli was definitely up there, and I've just got enough money to do Palmer to Martinelli, I think, because the 2.8 is currently being spent on Wilson, he who shall not be named. So Yeah, the big differential for me is Callum Wilson that I've stuck in here. I've been talking to a few people in the community today about what they think. Obviously, it's early news on the Isak injury. We haven't got full diagnosis. We've just got some press opinion and some, Ben Dinnery opinion on how bad that injury might look. But the prognosis seems to be that he's going to be out for up to 4 weeks. So if he's out for that, that basically gets, again, Callum Wilson for the next 3 Newcastle matches as a big differential. So for me, remember what he did, in the penultimate game week of the season. Came out and scored 48 points for a lot of managers, didn't he, in 1 week? So the sort of damage he can do when he's going to start, I just think that position where they'll probably pretty much every wild card will have Watkins and Haaland or Watkins and Alvarez. So as part of a 3-man, I actually think Wilson's worth a punt. Now, if I don't go for Wilson, the other name we haven't talked about much is Darwin Núñez. So he's on audition tonight. I'm not sure I'll be able to watch the game live, but he is definitely someone that, again, a bit like Mitoma not starting. Do we want Darwin to play 90 minutes in the Europa League? Maybe arguably we don't. If his minutes are managed, we can be pretty sure. And also, I don't know if you caught it, but Jurgen Klopp was really talking him up yesterday in terms of him being in a good moment. And, the reason he left him out was due to the international travel. So therefore, when he came on, he changed the game against Everton. So it's all positive about Darwin. And if you can take a benching, once in every 3-4 games, I think he could be worth much gold. So Darwin or Wilson in that position. These are the 2 decisions I'm still wavering over. And I think it's okay with 24 hours to go to be wavering over 2 positions, isn't it, in a wild card, Fergie?
Flipping out and wavering over about 10, mate. Don't worry about
that. Exactly. But yeah, the Mitoma is definitely in the running for a midfield spot, and Darwin is in the midfield for, if I go Mitoma, though, probably got to go 3-5-2, and then, good old Archer comes back in. But that just seems so dull, doesn't it, having Archer, when you don't have to. And of course, the big miss is Trippier. No, Trippier couldn't afford him. So, yeah. All right.
Awesome.
What's the chat say?
Awesome
saying
draft.
It's rubbish?
No, they really like it. They're saying Wilson is a canny pick. Wilson won't play every game. His body won't take it. But, I think you probably, you thought about that and you're comfortable. Christian says Wilson, super shout. Nice draft, good differentials. Harry Dawson, lacking players from the team that's top of the league. I agree with that, being a Spurs fan. So some really good positive sort of feedback there. Looking at my team, the first thing to say is I've got Haaland in, so now I will cover that off first because I was shouting for the last 2 weeks I'm going without Haaland. Now, the main reason for this is when I really sat down and produced a Haaland-less draft that was probably Alvarez and Watkins. You can also go Alvarez, Watkins, and Wilson, or kind of whoever else as well. But when I sat down and worked it all out, and as you said, Rich, the fact that Gordon and Palmer and Tsimikas and all these have suddenly just emerged, I think if Gordon and Tsimikas hadn't have emerged, I think I may have gone without Haaland. I really do. But the fact they have emerged means my bench players almost, or who I would have benched, are actually very, very good starting sort of players now. So I looked at the upside of having Haaland against Not, and there's just not enough there. It's not worth the risk. I think it would have been worth the risk a couple of weeks ago without Gordon and without Tsimikas, but it's just not worth it now. So I'll address that first. I'm disappointed a bit because I would have liked to gone against the herd and really attacked it, but it just isn't worth it, is what I'd say. It also says on the slide that 0.5 million down on this. I did activate the wild card straight away, so I've gained that in team value. But just to run through the team, Areola and Turner, although I have got a bit of a plan now based on what you just said, Rich. I like the Flecken move there. Tsimikas, Cash and Gabriel, obviously. I've taken, I've been influenced by the HERAI team in potentially not having someone like Udogie or that kind of 4.5 million player on the bench. I'm not I'm not sure it's needed. I can get to someone if I want to. I was looking at Maguire as well. Maguire's only 4.2 million. Their fixture's still pretty decent.
How long do we reckon Maguire's got before he?
I think Martinez is out for quite a while, isn't he? Martinez still. So I'm guessing he's got a while. And when there are other players in that in that thing in that kind of mold as well. The 4.1. 4.2, but at the moment, at the moment it's Taylor and Baldock who both play when they're fit, and I would, and with Archer as a third, he'd be my 12th man every week anyway, and I would hope that given the attacking seven about to read out, they're going to play almost every minute of every game anyway. But
I wouldn't have Baldock, mate, unless he's dropped to 3.8 and you're literally on Skid Row.
It's only because you've had him and you've had a bit of hard luck.
He's a nightmare. No, he's an absolute no. I mean, he plays for Sheffield United. I mean, you'd be better off going with Branthwaite or something like that.
Yes, I agree with that.
Something like that.
Yes, that's a good shout.
Yeah.
I've got Salah. I've got Son, which was really important for me to keep. He's the kind of he's the player which makes it so I do have to slightly negotiate in defence. I've got Saka, so I said right at the start, Saka and Son for me are non-negotiable, and Salah. They all play in similar positions, coming off the wing, coming inside, probably all on penalties. They play a lot of minutes. They're so frightening to watch, and I just love owning all three of them. I've got Bowen in this draft at the moment, but we have said that you can, that could be anyone. That could be Diaby, and I think what I might do after this conversation is go for Mitoma, because it does save almost $1 million, like 0.8. I think it'll save me
a bit more flex, doesn't it?
It does, and what that 0.8 can then do is put Turner up to Flecken, and also potentially put someone like Baldock or whoever up to a Maguire, or up to someone like that as well.
That's it. You just get that little bit of those
exactly.
upgrade on about 2 or 3 players as a result.
And I really like Mitoma. He is. I didn't own him for a lot of last season, and it was horrible watching him. He was so unlucky towards the end. I know he only scored like 1 goal in the last 9 game weeks, but he should have scored a lot more. And he's frightening this. He came off the bench a couple of weeks ago and scored a brace. Right? He's that kind of player. He's frightening. And then Haaland and Watkins. So that's my team. What I could do as well, I could squeeze in Trippier. So if I did Bowen down to Palmer, and I'd still have a magnificent midfield in terms of Salah, Saka.
Sorry, you're going to say what's your midfield? Salah,
Saka, Son, and Gordon. And then if I had Palmer as the 5th, I could actually have Trippier as well, which I'm just not convinced that, like, if I go man for man, Trippier against Mitoma over these next 3 or 4 especially, I fancy Mitoma to outscore Trippier personally.
I think the team you've gone for is in line with what I would go with. Like it.
Yeah, that's great midfield, Fergie. It's set up for the long term there, isn't it?
I think Son is the one I'm most excited about, because having Son and Saka, because I think even if you are wildcarding this week, it's tough to get him in, even if you are wildcarding. If you're not wildcarding, it's even tougher. So I really like the thought of having those two. And obviously Son is going to be a long-term pick. We all know what he's like: 2 points, 3 points, 14 points, 2 points, 9 points, 2 points, 18 points. Right? He's that kind of player. So I'm really happy to hold him for long term. So yeah, that's my wild card. I think I'm nearly set on that. But yeah, I think I might go for Mitoma over Bowen. But though I thoroughly expect Bowen and everyone we've mentioned to do really, really well. I think that's what's great about this season. I mentioned it last week, as I say, that there's so many fantastic options, loads of goals all over the place. So yeah.
Indeed.
And I also just as a final point, the thing about having Watkins, having Son as well, is I can downgrade as well. I don't want to be stuck anywhere really. Because I could go for Ferguson instead of Watkins, for example, or go for someone a bit less, but then you're kind of stuck then, aren't you? It's the same with Son. I go down from Son to any midfielder in the game as well. I go Son. If Son gets injured, I go to Bowen. And this on the keepers is something actually. If you go with Areola and Turner, if Areola does potentially lose his place, I doubt he will, right? Don't get me wrong. But if he does lose his place, because he has got Fabianski there, and Turner's not available, or Areola gets injured, you're going to have to make a couple of transfers to get a playing keeper. So slightly something which, when you mentioned about Flecken and Johnston, played in my mind
I just think
as well.
it's a nice thing. I think it might net out a few extra points. You've got to be patient with that, haven't you? But it's kind of like it's not a bad use of an extra $500,000. Absolutely.
So yeah,
good team, mate. Good team. I'm a bit I think I'd rather have your team than mine. So I've got some work to do in the next 24 hours.
I'm sure you'll wangle it around, Rich. You're only a million short. I'm sure you'll wangle it around, won't you? So.
The Europa League lineups are important though tonight, because if they give an indication, because apparently the chat's saying Tsimikas is rested for Poole tonight, so does that mean he's been dropped, or does that mean he's been rested? I mean, to me, that means he's been protected, right?
Why would he be dropped? He played on the weekend. They kept a clean sheet, and they just know they got a lot of games coming up. That's all I think it is. So
interesting.
Awesome.
I don't know if Darwin's playing or not, but if he only gets a few mins, then that bodes well. So that it's either go for the you've got a mega midfield there, so it's either go for the mega midfield or go a bit more punty and have a 4-3-3, 3-4-3 formation for the next few weeks. I think that's a bit riskier. Personally.
According to Craig in the chat, Darwin starts this evening, Rich. So that might make your decision a bit easier on the wild card.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, so that is it for us for this week. Thank you so much for joining us as usual. For those who joined in the chat, those who will watch it back, and those listening on the podcast, your support is very, very much appreciated. Adam, thank you so much. Apologies that felt you were not left out, but it would have been nice for all three of us to be on wildcard, and hope you sort your team out to where you want it to kind of get to. I'm sure you can wangle it around to where you want to get to. But where can people get hold of you?
At Twitter or at X on Hopta Stats.
Fantastic, and thank you, Rich, and best of luck for your wild card. Where can people get hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on X on at Rich Clarke FPL.
Breaking news of FPL scoped. Salah isn't starting this evening either, which is obviously good for the weekend. My handle on Twitter is at FFH_Fergie, and this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. We would really like if you did that. Remember to subscribe to the channel at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. If you haven't seen, the brilliant Jan Batra is doing his own weekly podcast as well. It will be on this channel in the morning. If you haven't had a look at it yet, take a look. It is absolutely superb. And we'll be back next week previewing Game Week 11. In the meantime, the very, very best of luck for Game Week 10. And may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.